Thanks, Tim. If you jump into the first slide, thank you. A little bit of a different story to the others who have preceded me. I want to start today by outlining the themes of our presentation. The first theme is that our established clinical trials business is growing substantially. In that clinical trials segment, Cogstate offers our technology and associated services to pharmaceutical companies for use in clinical drug trials. For the year to 30 June 2020, our clinical trials segment has delivered the best annual sales result that we've ever recorded. That was US $46 million of new sales contracts in that 12-month period. At the end of September, the quarter just finished, Cogstate has contracted revenue in excess of US $42 million that will be recognised over coming period. So that segment's in really good shape. The second theme, and perhaps the most exciting aspect that we'll discuss today, is our emerging healthcare business. Just over 2 weeks ago, Cogstate announced a global license agreement with global pharmaceutical company ASI that will forever change the commercial opportunity for Cogstate, and it positions us to launch the first ever widely adopted digital assessment of cognition. And then the final theme that I want to go over is the financial impact of the operating business and the increase in shareholding value that we expect to be able to deliver in the coming years. The upfront royalty receipt related to the global license agreement that we've just signed, along with the growing revenue from our established clinical trials business, positions us to create significant shareholder value in the coming years, and I want to share that with you. So we can just jump to the next slide, please. Cogstate was founded 20 years ago against the backdrop of an aging population and the increasing incidence of Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. Our vision was to develop a technology that would allow us to take cognitive assessment beyond specialty medical centres and into the community, where it could help meet the need for early detection of memory impairment. Our ambition was to make regular cognitive assessment as simple and as commonplace as measuring blood pressure, something that everyone should be able to do periodically as part of good healthcare. We wanted to avoid problems that plague traditional cognitive assessment, ensure that our tests were repeatable, and that they didn't discriminate based on language or culture of the individual being tested. In other words, we wanted to make it really simple. We wanted to be able to test anyone, anywhere, at any time. If we just jump to the next slide. Since launching our technology into the clinical trials market in 2004, the majority of our revenue has come from that business segment. And in that segment, our customers are pharmaceutical companies seeking to determine the impact that their investigational compound has on cognition. So clinical trials is our established business, and that generated US $21 million of revenue in financial year 20. It's a project revenue model that provides us with great forward visibility and predictability of our revenue. The length of the clinical trial provides a revenue tail that we can build on from year to year. Healthcare, which is the use of our Cogstate technology to measure brain health in the community, is our next horizon. It was the basis of our original investment proposition and is starting to become a reality as we get closer to the release of disease-modifying therapy for Alzheimer's disease. This is more of a subscription-based software revenue model sold through strategic partners such as ASI, who have other revenue. And in the case of ASI, that revenue is revenue from a therapeutic program. And that therapeutic program is then tied to the adoption of Cogstate software. In both of these segments, Cogstate relies on data from more than 600 peer-reviewed publications, and that comes from decades of collaboration between academic researchers and the Cogstate science team. We just jump to the next slide. And what we're going to talk about now is that clinical trials segment. Thank you. In the clinical trials division, Cogstate enters into sales contracts with pharmaceutical and biotech companies for the provision of our tech and services for use in their trials, as I mentioned. The idea there is to determine the extent to which those investigational compounds impact cognition of the patient population. And we work across a range of indications as we've just depicted on this slide. In this market, Cogstate technology can be used both as an efficacy and as a safety endpoint. In the context of efficacy in things like Alzheimer's disease, we're attempting to determine if the potential therapy has improved the cognition of the patient population. In safety endpoints, what we're trying to do is to determine if the potential therapy has an unintended side effect which may make cognition deteriorate. And we see that in indications such as oncology. Thank you. Next slide. The sales contracts that we execute in the clinical trial segment differ in value for each clinical trial, depending on the scope of the technology and the services that we provide, as well as the complexity of the study. An increase in the total value of sales contracts executed will increase revenue backlog and will over time result in an increase in revenue recognised from Cogstate. But there is a lag between that execution of sales contract and recognition of revenue. Revenue from the sales contract is recognised over the life of the clinical trial, and the life of a clinical trial can vary from a few months for an early phase study to 4 to 5 years for a large phase 3 study. For the year to 30 June 2020, the most recent financial year, Cogstate executed $46 million US of clinical trial sales contracts. As you can see there, the result is an improvement over 150% on the prior 2019 year, but a 28% improvement on the previous record that was set in 2018. The level of sales contracts executed is a reflection of the accelerating demand for Cogstate's scientific solutions and technologies over recent years. We've seen continued sales growth in areas such as rare disease indications, and we've seen a tremendous rebound in investment in Alzheimer's disease over the last 18 months. And that was an area that was really negatively impacted during the 2019 financial year because of a series of clinical trials failures, and you can see that impact in terms of the bookings in that 2019 year. So after a really disappointing 2019, through 2020, we really picked up where we left off at the end of 2018. Next slide, please. So to talk now about the healthcare segment of the business, and as previously mentioned, Cogstate works across a range of indications, but there's no doubt that the application of our technology as a screening tool for memory loss that may be associated with Alzheimer's disease represents an enormous opportunity for us. Globally, Alzheimer's disease is a huge societal problem that strains healthcare budgets, reduces quality of life for an increasing number of older people, and places enormous burden on both healthcare systems and loved ones who end up becoming carers. Alzheimer's disease is the most significant untreated chronic disease in the world today. The number of people living with Alzheimer's disease increases every year, and to date, there's been no therapeutic treatment that could alter the course of the disease. So as the world's population rapidly ages, the societal impact of Alzheimer's disease and the related dementias is staggering. The early detection of cognitive impairment is critical for meaningful intervention around care planning, lifestyle modifications, and symptomatic treatments. And it's going to be especially critical in the advent of an approved therapy that can change the course of Alzheimer's disease. And as an industry and as a society, we've never been closer to the release of a disease-modifying treatment for Alzheimer's disease. There's a number of promising monoclonal antibodies in late-stage development. So the potential for a disease-modifying therapy for Alzheimer's disease has meant a huge increase in interest from pharmaceutical companies looking to identify those people in the community that are suffering from memory loss. Next slide, thanks. So it's against that backdrop that we're really pleased to announce a couple of weeks ago the global license agreement with Japanese pharmaceutical company Eisai. This license agreement expands upon an agreement that was entered into just over a year ago by the two companies. In that time, Eisai have proven to be a really supportive partner for Cogstate that's committed to building an entire ecosystem for dementia patients and their families. And Eisai have solutions targeting everything from the identification of the first signs of memory loss, such as Cogstate, to the development of therapeutic treatments, as well as a range of lifestyle factors in between that. Under the terms of the license, Eisai will be responsible for marketing Cogstate technology in all countries, including all existing technology, but all future improvements to our technology as well. The agreement will exclude our clinical trials business, where we'll continue to offer our technology and services independently there. It's a 10-year license on a country-by-country basis from the date of the commercial launch in each country. And Eisai have committed to launch in the US within 1 year from the execution of the agreement, the EU within 3 years, and China within 4 years. We actually think they'll pretty comfortably exceed those timelines, but they're the outer limits. Eisai will have have an option to terminate the agreement after 5 years under very specific certain conditions. Under that license, ASI will pay Cogstate a minimum royalty payments of $45 million US over the next 10 years. That includes a $15 million upfront license, as well as $30 million of minimum royalties. The minimum royalties increase from year to year, as you can imagine, but they'll total $10 million over the first 5 years, from year 1 to 5, and then another $20 million from years 6 to 10. And similar to the agreement that we executed in Japan over a year ago, ASI will fund all software development work required to further develop or improve or alter our product to make it suitable for each country. And ASI will manage all regulatory issues in response to that. The resulting data from the use of the technology will be jointly owned by ASI and Cogstate. Just flick to the next slide, please. The commercial opportunities are substantial for this. So there are a range of opportunities from direct to consumer, so measuring people in their own home where they might access a website that says, are you worried about your memory? Going in for an annual health check at their physician's office, where that physician may be looking to identify patients who are suitable to go on to therapy. And then once we put people on therapy, the continued monitoring of that. Thank you. And the next one, please. So over the last 12 to 18 months, the commercial opportunities that exist for Cogstate have completely changed. We now have this opportunity to close the loop between clinical trials, the screening for memory impairment, and treatment options available to patients suffering from Alzheimer's disease. And that's a really important aspect that we can, the use of our technology in the clinical trials provides the scientific evidence, the commercial and scientific validity of our technology, which encourages the use as a screening tool, which then becomes a really important aspect in terms of the treatment options for patients. And the use of that as within those settings actually encourages the use of our technology in clinical trials. So we think this is a really important virtuous loop. So just to finish up, we really begin a new era for Cogstate. The global license of our technology to ASI in the healthcare segment allows for the global launch of our technology to individuals and physicians. ASI have proven to be a great partner, and we're really excited about that. Our core clinical trials business has experienced significant growth over the last 18 months. We're really well positioned from a cash perspective. We'll be banking that US $15 million within the next couple of weeks. So taken together, we're really confident that Cogstate will deliver a profitable 2021 financial year, and we're really well placed to deliver value creation for our shareholders into the future.
Thanks, Brad. We've got some good questions. I suggest you've got a few astute shareholders online here. We might have to follow up with a few later on, but first question, in 2020, the healthcare segment had about 2 million in sales, much higher in previous years. $1 million was from the ASI deal in Japan. Where'd the other $1 million come from?
So from both sale of product as well as just ASI support of, so payments from ASI in respect of other activities that were being undertaken.
Sure, okay. And a question, it's encouraging to see JD Health, ASI JV developing platform using Cogstate technology. Does this qualify as a start of commercialization in China? Hence, can we expect to see 10 million from ASI in 1 to 5 years as a minimum royalty?
So I'll pick apart that question. The minimum royalty is guaranteed years 1 to 5, 10 million, regardless of what happens. Yeah. In terms of the partnership that ASI has announced in China with JD, it's a really important stepping stone to commercial launch. It doesn't qualify as commercial launch at the moment, but it does give you indication that 4-year minimum timeframe that they have to launch commercial product in China is going to come, substantially forward from that 4-year timeframe.
Understood. And what's the status of Japanese regulatory clearance? Does that delay ASI's commercialization in Japan?
So yeah, still waiting on, ASI are working through that with the Japanese regulator at the moment. It hasn't been a priority until now. We feel that that's under control and the timeframe is manageable, really focused around that clearance and preparation for launch tying into therapeutic launch. So at the moment, most of the focus in Japan is on the online and the consumer segment through the Nono product, which is the Japanese rebranding of Cogstate in Japan.
Understood. And finally, who and how far ahead of you are you of your competitors in the field of kind of clinical trials and for new software services in emerging healthcare segment?
Yeah, so we feel that our scientific, there are more than 600 peer-reviewed publications supporting the validity of our technology, puts us a long way ahead of our competitors. The other aspect now that we feel really strongly about is our sales and marketing and commercialization strength that comes with the partnership with ASI, a company that potentially has, multi-billion-dollar revenue streams to support in terms of an Alzheimer's disease therapeutic, and the role that Cogstate will play in terms of patient acquisition in respect to those potential therapeutics means that we're a long way ahead of competitors in terms of what they will be able to spend on sales, marketing, commercialization compared to somebody who has a partner with multi-billion-dollar revenue streams.